All right, we got breaking news right here into First Take, straight from Adam Schefter. I'm going to read his tweet right now. The Bills are finalizing a trade to send four-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Stefon Diggs to the Houston Texans for draft pick compensation, sources tell ESPN. We were just talking, obviously, about Stefon Diggs moments ago. Louis Riddick, your response.
The Texans are not playing around. Like, this is between what they have done in free agency. Look on the defensive side of the football with the additions of guys like Danico Autry, Azeez Al-Shire. And then on offense, now they get Joe Mixon at running back. They re-signed Dalton Schultz. They already have Tank Dell. They already have Nico Collins. They already have Noah Brown. And then you add him into the mix here, along with CJ, who has already taken over this organization as the unquestioned, bona fide alpha, along with D'Amico kind of like overseeing this entire thing and drawing out of these guys the kind of performance, camaraderie, leadership, accountability that he's drawn out of them. Look, you have to tip your cap right now to Nick Caserio in terms of what he is getting done down there. He has catapulted them, I believe, now to the very top of the South, and they are firmly in the mix now to be able to deal with teams like Baltimore, deal with teams like Kansas City on a toe-to-toe type basis. Now, I know those are huge leaps considering how Baltimore dominated them last year in the playoffs, but this is how you make those steps. You go out and get these difference makers. Look, C.J. Stroud is going to be a top 3-4 quarterback this year. He'll be in that mix where you're going to be sitting there going, okay, well, where does he stack up with Josh? Where does he stack up with Joe Burrow? Where does he stack up with Lamar and all? He's going to be right in there now. He's going to be right in there. And as a team, what they are doing on both sides of the football and who they have at the helm right now in D'Amico, who was going to quickly solidify his place as a top 4 or 5 coach in the NFL, this organization, it is going straight up. It is going parabolic what they're getting done down there, especially this offseason. And it all started last year when, quite honestly, CJ fell to them and fell right in their lap. And it was the best thing that ever happened to him.
Blame David Tepper for that, the owner of Carolina. But you are 1,000% right from a Houston standpoint. That team is a good team. They got good receivers. They got a couple of tight ends. He's a good coach. Stroud's great. Diggs will be into it. Warm weather. Division's easy. 100%. 100%. I'll take it from the Buffalo angle. And you're not going to like it, but I'm going to say it. I think Buffalo, this is the right move for the Bills. He had been here a long time. He gets annoyed if he doesn't get the ball. Stevie just gave you the rundown as far as his second half of the year is concerned. He did not play well in the playoff game against Kansas City. I think Buffalo, it's time for them to move on. Now, Houston does not have a number 1 pick. Stevie just looked at it.
Yeah.
They don't have a number 1 pick. So what they get?
Shefty just tweeted a little bit ago about
second
the compensation. So they're getting a 2025 second-round pick via Minnesota, and Texans obviously received Stefon Diggs in a 2024 6th-round pick and a 2025 5th-round pick.
So they don't even get a pick this year for him. Yeah. This is next year they get a pick. So, wow, look at that. They didn't even get a pick. But I understand why Buffalo did it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of help for this year, but I get why Buffalo did it.
Well, they're going to – look, this is a wide receiver deep draft. They've got to get one.
I agree.
You've got to have more firepower, especially in the AFC. Look, Josh is great. And we had that discussion earlier about look at what Patrick has done with less than any other quarterback in the NFL in terms of winning at the highest level. I don't know if Josh is ready for that. We're going to find out because it's just perfect that this happened considering what the last segment was.
Oh, it's perfect.
We're going to find out now.
Perfect.
We're going to find out just how much.
Stevie set it up.
How much? Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you knew this was going down, Brick.
I didn't know this deal. I didn't know this deal.
You know what?
I didn't know this. I'm not you, my brother. I'm not that wise. But I would tell you this. I've been talking about it since the summertime. I said Stefon Diggs didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And this is validation. I understand that people want to act like it's just a trade. No, the man has wanted out.
Right.
He lost belief in the franchise. He believed they missed their window. And he was wearing his emotion on his sleeve. All we have to do is go to the videotape, and you can see that.
Yeah.
I came on the air, and I reported it in the summer. He went through this season, and I said, you cannot come back next season with him. And he clearly wanted out. And so for me, he should be thankful because the Buffalo Bills sent him to a really, really good situation. C.J. Stroud is an absolute stud. This brother can ball. He is something special. Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz. These brothers can play now. And so when you look at it from that perspective, you talked about them bringing up Mixon. I will remind you, we can look at the blowout loss, the lopsided loss, rather, that Baltimore handed to them in the divisional playoff round. Let us not forget what they did to Cleveland the week before that, okay? Cleveland, I understand they had Joe Flacco. It wasn't Deshaun Watson, but Joe Flacco had great moments for Cleveland at some point in time this year. They got to the playoffs. Their defense is real and a whole bit, and the Houston Texans gave it to them. And so when I look at it from that standpoint, I'm looking at the talent that the Houston Texans have on this squad. Again, still on those guys, I'm of the mindset. I'll give credit where credit's due. I am no fan of the Texans as an organization with McNair and them, and I don't like what they was doing with black coaches, hiring them and getting rid of them.
Oh, they killed Curry. They let him. They fired him after 1 year.
I was disgusted with all of that, but there is no denying that DeMeco Ryans is a sensational young coach. He was my coach of the year. When I look at him and what he brings to the table and what C.J. Stroud brings to the table and the personnel they have, this offense is going to be even more prolific. And as a result, look out for the Houston Texans. This is a big-time pickup. And also, last thing about Diggs, I understand he can come across as a bit petulant at times. He was in Minnesota. He was clearly the best receiver. They tried to give more love to Adam Thielen. You understand? He wanted out of Minnesota. Like you pointed out, Josh Allen elevated once Stefon Diggs arrived. The brother is a difference-maker, the game changer, notwithstanding the postseason performance against Kansas City just now. And now he's going to Houston. Wherever he goes, the quarterbacks look better. And C.J. Stroud was looking big time without him.
Yeah.
So imagine what C.J. Stroud is going to look like now. Look out for the Houston
Do you
Texans.
think that Harbaugh poses a threat to the Chiefs in the AFC West?
Yeah, he does. Because, I mean, that press conference, which is wild, man. I mean, he's a wild. But see, what he's
Hey,
such
Dave Campbell was wild, too.
Look,
That's true.
He is a good – I remember talking to John Harbaugh this year before we did the Week 18 game between Baltimore and Pittsburgh. And I was giving John his props about just how good of a football operations builder he is. Bringing in coaches, changing coaches around, putting them in good positions, how they really then affected the performance of the players on the field, getting a lot out of it. And he had a bunch of guys leave this year, right, who wound up getting coordinator jobs. And he said, you think I'm good at this? My brother is the best that there is at that. At building organizations, building coaching staffs, building up players, teaching players how to win. That's something that's desperately built, because every year we talk about the Chargers and we talk about the fact that this is one of the most talented teams in the NFL that were being underutilized, underdeveloped, that really weren't spreading their wings, so to speak, to the degree that they should. He'll get that out of them. He'll get that out of Justin. He'll get that out of this offensive line once he fixed the right side of it. He'll get it out of Gus Edwards. He's going to be a battering ram for them as a running back. And on the defensive side, I promise you this, as long as Joey Bosa can stay healthy and Khalil Mack are healthy, these two guys will terrorize. They will terrorize, and Derwin James the same.
Well, number one, eventually he'll get to Mahomes. He's not getting into this year.
Yeah.
It's going to take a while. They have no receivers. Eckler leaves. And, you know, I know you know a lot more about football than me. When I see Bosa and Mack for this franchise make a big play in a big game on defense, call me.
I'm with
Call me.
I'm with you there.
Call me there.
This guy's on the field.
I mean, listen, you got Herbert. He's won in the NFL. Eventually, they're going to be a good team. I'm not quite ready to say they're going to challenge the Chiefs in 2024.
Well, I'm not trying. Listen, I think that on its face, I can't argue with you about that. What I would tell you is this. Do I get to look at a resume? Do I get to look at you in 4 years as the coach in San Francisco, as an NFL coach? You went to 3 NFC championship games when nobody saw it coming. I think I get to do that. Do I get to do it when we didn't hear about Colin Kaepernick until you put him in the starting lineup? I get to do that. Do I get to look at you restoring Michigan to national prominence, even though that's on a collegiate level and what have you, in terms of all the years you were struggling against Ohio State, and then all of a sudden you righted that ship and you went to back-to-back postseason appearances and you won a national championship before walking away? I get to look at all of that. And then I got to look at you and your reputation in player development and how you big up dudes and you find dudes that nobody was anticipating, nobody was thinking about. I'm also looking at Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. I know these brothers can play. But the reality is that you had two $20 million a year wide receivers that were missing the playoffs with Justin Herbert as your quarterback. Now, injuries had obviously a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, that's your reality. And so I'm looking at a Jim Harbaugh coming up in there, and I'm saying he's seeing all of this. Plus, he knows how to evaluate talent. And maybe he's finding diamonds in the rough. I'm looking at a Quentin Johnson, a Joshua Palmer, a Darius Davis. These are wide receivers that you got never really paid any much attention to them. Maybe he believes in them. Maybe he's looking at them and saying, we need to get a bit more roughhouse offensively. That's why we went out and got Gus Edwards to run the football. He's more of a bell cow coming out of the running back spot than an Austin Eckler would be, even though I love me some Austin Eckler, okay? And then you look at what you want to do defensively, because they had some problems last year as well. And we know he's not going to tolerate that. All I'm saying is when I look at Jim Harbaugh, he gives me cause to pause and makes me say there's a reason to believe if anybody can disrupt the dominance of a Kansas City, particularly in the AFC West division, I think he's somebody that figures out, look, I think he's the kind of guy that's looking at this is who's standing in our way.
Yeah.
This is the path.
It may not
this
be
is
right
the
away.
roadblock.
Yeah, that's my point.
But it's coming.
Okay.
I
It's
agree with
coming.
that.
Yeah.
All right.